Music fades in, gentle, reflective, Christmas-style instrumental. Welcome to today's episode, Wise Men, Wicked King, and a Guiding Star. In this episode, we will explore a remarkable journey from the biblical account known as the Visit of the Wise Men, a story retold from Matthew chapter 2, verses 1 to 12. Over the next 10 minutes, we'll walk through the journey of the wise men, the fear and jealousy of King Herod, and the profound moment they bow before the child Jesus with their gifts. Music fades down under the voice. Let's start with a segment we like to call Watching the Sky. When we imagine wise men, often we picture scholars or astrologers who are deeply attuned to the cosmos. Long ago, a group of these very wise men spent their evenings observing the night sky. They had mapped the stars and understood celestial movements, seeking knowledge far beyond what the average person could fathom. One night, something unusual happened. As darkness blanketed the land, a bright new star appeared, unlike any they had seen before. This dazzling star brought them a special joy, signaling to them that a new king had been born. But where would they find him? This imperative question propelled them on a quest that demanded both courage and dedication. Short music sting. They gathered their precious gifts and set out on an extraordinary journey, with the star as their guiding light, pointing the way toward this newborn king. Just think about that journey, over hills and through valleys, guided solely by a star in the sky. Now that takes commitment. Next, we turn to our segment titled Meeting the Meanest Man Around. The wise men expected to find the newborn king in a grand palace, perhaps in a capital city filled with splendor. Instead, they found themselves in Jerusalem, where they encountered King Herod, the ruler known for his cunning, a man described as the meanest man around. Can you imagine their surprise? They approached Herod with a simple yet profound question. Where is the newborn king? We've come to worship him and bring him gifts of love and praise. But surprisingly, Herod had no idea where this child was. Disturbed and intimidated, he turned to his scholars and scrolls for answers, searching through ancient texts that spoke of a promised king. The prophecies pointed to Bethlehem, the birthplace of King David. Herod's reaction was filled with both fear and jealousy, and he realized that he was threatened by the thought of a young king who could take his crown. As he concealed his anger and envy, we see a sharp contrast forming in our story. While the wise men sought the truth and were eager to worship, Herod was ruled by fear, deceit, and the desire for violence. This moment serves as a stark reminder for us. Physical proximity to holy things doesn't guarantee a heart that is willing to worship. Music rises slightly, then under voice. Herod feigned interest and sent the wise men on their way, instructing them to find the child and then return to him, of course under the false pretense of wanting to worship this new king himself. Little did they know his true intentions were far more sinister. Moving on to our next segment, Herod's dark plan. Herod's mind was racing, filled with jealousy and plotting. He sent the wise men off to search for the king, but in his heart was a plan that was far from holy. In this portion of the story, we witness the contrast of intentions. The wise men traveled extensively out of reverence and a desire to worship. Herod, on the other hand, was fixated on deceit and the potential destruction of a rival. This contrast invites us to reflect on our own motivations. Are we truly seeking after truth and reverence, or are we blinded by our own fears and jealousies? Are our hearts open to worship, or are they closed off by bitterness and resentment? Now, let's journey alongside the wise men again as we delve into our next segment, Following the Star to Bethlehem. After their encounter with Herod, the wise men stepped back into the night, once again observing that same brilliant star lighting their path. It was their beacon of hope, shining brightly and guiding them toward Bethlehem. Can you imagine the anticipation and excitement that filled their hearts on that journey? As they traveled, the star did not fade, but rather grew more radiant, leading them closer and closer. When at last the star came to rest above a humble abode, their hearts soared. They had found the one whom they had sought. Upon entering, they immediately bowed down before the child Jesus. These respected, learned men humbled themselves, offering reverence to this young child. They presented gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh, which are rich in symbolism. Gold represents kingship, frankincense signifies divinity, and myrrh foreshadows suffering and death. Soft music. What a powerful moment. Their gifts were meant to honor him as king, God, and even as a sacrificial savior. In this poignant act, we see the laying down of their riches and reverence, underscoring how true wisdom involves recognizing the worth of Christ. As the night deepened, the wise men slept, and we arrive at our next segment, a warning in a dream. God spoke to them in a dream, advising them not to return to Herod. This divine warning was powerful. These men, outsiders to the Jewish faith, were receptive to God's message and obeyed. They chose to return home by another route, slipping quietly from Herod's reach, ensuring the safety of the child. Herod's anger was intense, but God's plan for Jesus could not be thwarted. This moment illustrates the importance of heeding divine guidance and the lengths that God will go to protect his plans. It is striking to realize that while these wise men lived far from the center of God's covenant people, they overcame great distances and dangers, motivated by a sincere desire to worship. Meanwhile, the king who resided right by the temple, a hub of worship, chose hatred over reverence. Isn't it poignant how proximity does not guarantee a heart aligned with worship? Finally, we close with our last segment, Wise Men Seek Him Still. As we reflect on the actions of these distant wise men, we cannot help but ask ourselves, if they could be so eager to worship, what does it look like for us today? Are we chasing after the true meaning of Christmas, or simply going through the motions? In fact, our understanding of Christ's coming, his life, death, and the purpose behind it, enriches our perspective far beyond what the wise men knew at that time. We are faced with the reminder that our worship can sometimes be half-hearted or distracted. But there is a challenge before us. Wise men seek him still. We are called to search for him with the same fervor and dedication. As you go about your day, dear listeners, consider, where are you seeking him? What gifts of time, love, service, and generosity might you lay before Christ in response to his love? Worship can be expressed in myriad ways. Think of how these wise men gave their best and laid it down at the feet of Jesus. We hope you've enjoyed this reflection on the visit of the wise men. If this message resonates with you, feel free to share it with someone who might need a reminder that true wisdom still seeks Jesus. Thank you for joining us today, and may your search for him be fruitful and filled with joy.